This week, we talk about two movies that people, us included, are mistaking for other movies.
That's right. We'll be talking about Normal, that's not Nobody, and Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Not like The Mummy, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Yet. And for TV, we'll be discussing Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, Season 2, Episode 8, and Daredevil, Born Again, Season 2, Episode 6.
But make no mistake, it's that time again. This is
We should watch that episode 4.
Well, I think that was a good one.
We should watch that with Ashley and Sushi. Feel the vibes, it's a night so lush.
Our first movie is the Bob Odenkirk action vehicle, Normal. No, that's not Nobody. The other one where all hell breaks loose in a small town. But Normal is a strong contender to join what I'm calling Odenkirk's noology. You got Normal, you got Nobody, you got Nobody too. And if you really want to stretch it, he's also popped up in the TV shows No Activity and Nobodies.
Oh,
now that sounds like a lot, but I did a little math, Sushi.
Oh,
and he has 135 credits, making no films only 3.7% of his filmography.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I digress. Normal follows Bob Odenkirk as substitute Sheriff Ulysses, newly assigned to the sleepy town of Normal, Minnesota, where he quickly realizes things are off and the locals are hiding something dark. Now, what follows is a mix of small town quirks and sudden high stakes violence that's basically giving the vibe of Fargo meets John Wick, maybe a little cuter. The film is co-written by Odenkirk and John Wick writer Derek Kolstad, with direction by UK horror/action director Ben Wheatley, who is perhaps best known for his film Kill List, which has been on my list for a long time.
Mm.
So, Sush, what'd you think of the movie?
Well, my interest in this movie was pretty much just from seeing the teaser, which also set my expectations. I just remember seeing Bob Odenkirk in it, and that the vibe was very similar to the Nobody movies, which I enjoyed, except that instead of a family man character, he plays a small town sheriff. In the full trailer, we found out that he's new to this job in Normal, and the movie is, in fact, from the creator of John Wick and Nobody. So that explains why I picked up on the essence of Nobody from the teaser. But in all honesty, I didn't even remember that it mentioned that in the trailer, since I had already bought into seeing it before then. So yeah, I pretty much went into seeing this movie on the premise, and because this seemed like an entertaining action comedy movie, along with some assumptions of some potential tie to the Nobody movies. And that was before I looked into it and found out that that was the case. Learning about the production team after seeing the movie, I think it made complete sense, though, that we got the movie that we did. As I mentioned from before I saw the movie, I had no idea, but writer Derek Kolstad, who, like you mentioned, is probably better known for creating the John Wick franchise, actually created Nobody as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my suspicions were correct. Also, Mark Priviciero, who produced the Nobody movies, was also producer on this too.
Ah.
And the director, Ben Wheatley, while I wasn't aware of him by name, I have seen Meg 2, The Trench, which apparently he also directed. So yeah, I guess it completely makes sense why this movie felt the way it did. Because it kind of falls into that same ballpark of like all those. I really like the cast of this movie. Bob Odenkirk as Sheriff Ulysses definitely shares some personality traits with his character in Nobody, but he's otherwise different enough that it doesn't feel like a complete copy of that character.
Mm-hmm.
I think the supporting cast, which included Henry Winkler as Mayor Kibner and Lana Headey as Moira, did a great job. However, I want to give a special shout out to Billy McClellan, who played Deputy Mike Nelson. He has a hilarious bit that's revisited a few times throughout the movie. I mean, it's hard to miss, so you'll know what it is when you see it. Most of the notable design elements in this movie were obviously with the stunts, I think, which were undeniably good. But at this point, we've seen Odenkirk in another role that's arguably more physically demanding than this. So I felt like I couldn't escape the comparisons. I do think that the set design was really well done as far as conveying the actual look and feel of a modern small town. But obviously, I also think that because of the characters being small town people and how well the actors did in playing those roles, they also contributed significantly to how convincing that ended up being as a whole. While I enjoyed the plot, I definitely did not expect it to be as crazy as it ended up being. Namely, I wasn't really expecting one of the specific parties that were involved to be involved, but I can't really elaborate on that any further without giving away some spoilers, so I'll leave it at that. Though I feel like both the teaser and full trailer each focused on one of the two major aspects of the story, the small town aspect and the action comedy aspects, respectively. In the end, I think they kind of work together in conveying what we ended up getting from the movie as a whole. Like there's a good amount of small town mystery kind of stuff for maybe the first third of the movie, and the rest is progressively escalating action with a bunch of comedy sprinkled in. So while not exactly what I expected, it was definitely pretty similar to what I did, with most of the surprises, I'd say, adding to my enjoyment, if anything. So moving into my ratings, I gave this a 3.5 for enjoyment and a 3 for quality. Overall, I enjoyed this movie. It was funny and the action was over the top, so I can't really complain. I basically ended up getting something slightly more interesting and entertaining than I was expecting. While I enjoyed this movie, I unfortunately couldn't keep from comparing it to the Nobody movies, which I feel like I enjoyed more than this one. I think most of it was the pacing of this movie felt a bit slower, and the scale with the movie being set in a small town certainly also kept me from enjoying it as much as I did the Nobody movies. As far as quality goes, I don't think there was anything bad about the movie. In fact, I actually felt like Odenkirk was slightly more exciting to watch in his action scenes in this movie compared to Nobody 2. So that actually contributed to me giving this movie a bump up over the midpoint for the rating. However, I do think that the primary setting of a small town, again, was kind of limiting to how high I could rate the quality. Also, given the first Nobody movie had a lower budget and still at least seemed like it felt larger and higher quality, I really couldn't give this a higher quality rating than I did. So, with that said, I obviously recommend the Nobody movies if you haven't seen them yet.
Oh, they're so fun.
Hell, even if you have, just rewatch them, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Oh, well, I really enjoyed it. This is one I was really looking forward to. I'm a big Bob Odenkirk fan. You know, I loved Mr. Show and then some of his more modern stuff. So I'm always down for what he's doing. And I knew the writer's work. I'm a avid John Wick fan, and I knew the director by reputation. So it had all the ingredients of something I'd be into. Plus, I'm always a sucker for a Midwest set action movie. It just always kind of hits. I like the way they blend in quirk with some of the other stuff. And one of the things I noticed about this movie is how the plot is very close to an action trope, which I've taken to thinking of as the secret badass. You know, we've seen a million of these movies.
Yeah,
There's a guy living a quiet, normal life. Then something happens that pushes him over the edge. And it's like, oh, he used to be that guy, you know, military, mob, spy, whatever. And now he's back and everyone's screwed. Think Odenkirk's Nobody. Think Derek Kolstad's John Wick. Think of The Beekeeper, or really anything that Jason Statham's been in the last 10 years. And what I thought was fun about Normal is it flips the trope. Because in Normal, it's not our protagonist that's secretly an unstoppable force. It's the town itself.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. So it seemed like a fun way of approaching this, playing with a trope that a lot of people like, but giving it something a little bit newer. Instead of watching the guy reveal himself, you're watching the whole place slowly reveal itself. And I loved all the small town stuff. I think that was definitely some of my favorite parts come from that. Just meeting all these weird, specific characters and immediately clocking like, okay, something's up with you. There's the hardware store guy who's got a cabinet that's curiously very locked down. You've got the knitting lady who seems to be a little off. And it's all going somewhere. So you're kind of watching them waiting for, okay, what's the deal? And the movie does take its time with that. I would say it's a bit of a slow burn at first. I didn't look at my watch, but I think it took 30-ish minutes before things really pop off, which I think is both good and bad. One of the things that works in its favor is because by the time everything goes crazy, you know who everyone is, you know all their little quirks. And I appreciate that people don't suddenly turn into villains. It's not like it suddenly turns into a James Bond thing and things are crazy. The town is still kind of the same, but a little different. I don't know. Hard to describe without talking spoilers, but hopefully you catch my drift. And that's where I think a lot of the humor comes from. There's a lot of little details that really sold the tone for me. Henry Winkler is the mayor, which was like perfect casting. He's got that super warm, friendly, everything's fine, small town energy, which makes it even funnier because you're like, I don't think everything's fine, man. And then there's one moment that really, really stood out to me because it's handled so simply. There's a character who doesn't really adhere to gender norms, and the movie doesn't make a big deal out of it. There's no speech, no spotlight. It just is a part of who they are. And at one point, a character asks, "Oh, are you so-and-so's daughter?" And the character says, "No." And you can see in real time the person who asked realizing, oh, it's not the relationship that's wrong. It's the label. And the character adjusts and says, oh, you're their child. And the character says, oh, yeah. And I just thought that was a great small moment, but it tells you a lot about the characters and the movie. It's just someone paying attention and correcting themselves without turning it into a whole big thing. Very Midwest and very human. And you talked a bit about how it's hard not to compare the movie to other things we've seen before. I would agree with that. I am obsessed with these kinds of movies, and it's very hard not to categorize them in your mind. But I think what makes this movie different is that it's almost like, Sushi, you've probably heard the term cozy murders, right? Like, I always think of them as British shows, but sort of comforting mysteries. There's something sort of comforting about this movie. Like, it's got violence, it's got action, but it never feels super heavy or grim, like it's trying to make a big statement about how terrible the world is. It's fun and it's endearing, and you're just along for the ride. And I think Bob Odenkirk, he's made for this. He's really playing into his comedic chops, but in a way that isn't overly showy. He's a little wore down, kind of funny, observant. I almost felt he was like a quieter, older, more low-key John McClane from Die Hard. He's the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he's doing what he can.
Yeah.
And when the violence hits, I really like it. I mean, I think it's creative and funny. We get some big audience reactions when we saw it. There's one guy who kept yelling. Yeah. So that's a good sign. And I got to talk about stunt stuff. So I have to shout out the stunt team led by Clayton Barber. He's someone who's been in the business a really long time, been in a lot of great movies. And also Greg Remeter, who's someone who's been a part of the 8711 stunt team for a long time. He is one of the guys in the crazy stairwell fight scene in Atomic Blonde. So he's great. A lot of names really popped off as I was going through, and I think they're doing great work here. Overall, I would say it's just an easy, enjoyable watch. If you like action movies, you're going to have a good time. If you like Bob Odenkirk, you'll have a really good time. If you like small town Midwest, I think you're equally going to enjoy it. And honestly, this is a movie that I know that my mother will love. And I think that's always a good sign for a movie. Getting into my ratings, I also gave it a little lower than some of those other examples in the genre that I talked about earlier. And that's not to knock this movie at all. I think this movie is really good in that sort of cozy, comforting watch area. So I gave it a 3.5 also for enjoyment. I had a really good time. I was smiling. It was great. But I think it's not, it's not breaking barriers. For quality, I gave it a 3. The only reason I knocked it down from my enjoyment rating is just because the pace is a little slow at the beginning. And I would have loved to see more action because I'm just greedy for action. I love it. So, yeah, it was a good one. And I hope they make a no body 3. I don't know if they'll make a normal 2, but I hope we see more of Bob Odenkirk action movies. That's for sure.
For sure.
Our next movie is Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which follows a family whose daughter has gone missing. 8 years later, she reappears having been in a sarcophagus the whole time. The family is reeling, trying to deal with the condition that the daughter's in and trying to figure out what happened to her and what is at the center of this spreading supernatural threat that has the family caught in the middle of something ancient, violent, and very much alive and in the present. The film is directed by, this should come as no shock, Lee Cronin, best known for Evil Dead Rise. And the whole Lee Cronin of it all in the title is very much so that you can tell this movie from the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, as well as the Mummy movie that Tom Cruise did not so long ago. It stars Natalie Grace, Jack Rayner, and May Callumway, and leans fully into Cronin's style of grounded, escalating horror rather than the adventure spectacle you may know from the previous Mummy movies. So, yeah, this was gross. What did you think of it, Sush?
Well, I saw this movie because it was from Blumhouse, and I think since we've started watching more horror films, that's definitely one of the studios that's been key in facilitating this change in our viewing habits, given that they've released a lot of the movies in that genre that we've enjoyed, like Get Out and the movies that we call Mathregan.
Oh, Mathregan, love it.
And Megan movies. Also, I knew of James Wan, but more from his involvement in action films like Aquaman and Mortal Kombat. Though I've also seen some of the Saw franchise films he's worked on. So based on the involvement of those two parties, I assumed I was in pretty good hands. Additionally, I felt like Blumhouse had an interesting marketing campaign for this movie, with the mystery surrounding what happened to Katie being presented in the teaser, then like a follow-up with more scenes with the main cast and the full trailer, but otherwise preserving the mystery. And it seemed like this movie would actually involve a mummy that was somehow associated with our main human characters, which I at least felt was unique enough for me that it was worth checking out. With that said, going into this movie, I basically only had 2 lingering questions that I hadn't gotten around to finding out. 1, who is Lee Cronin? And should I know who he is? And 2, what the fuck is wrong with that little girl's face and skin?
Oh.
I'm happy to say I've since found out that Lee Cronin is known for directing Evil Dead Rise, as Ashley mentioned. And while I also did find out what's going on with that little girl, I'm not going to talk about it because that'd be spoiler territory.
It would indeed.
While I mostly enjoyed the direction and acting in this movie, I didn't feel the same about the writing. To me, it felt like either there was a considerable amount of connective material that was cut from the final theatrical release, or some aspects of the characters that were poorly written negatively impacted the movie overall.
Yeah.
It was honestly hard for me to figure out which was more likely, since I admittedly don't have as much knowledge and awareness regarding the production aspect of films, especially not horror films.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know most of the cast, but I did recognize Jack Rayner, who played Charlie Cannon, the father in this movie. It's from Transformers, Age of Extinction, and one of my favorites, Midsummer, as the asshole boyfriend.
He's the worst.
And May Calamawy, who plays Detective Dahlia Zaki. I recognize her from playing Layla in the Moon Knight TV series on Disney Plus. I also remember joking to Ashley when we were seeing this movie that she's like the only Egyptian actress Hollywood knows. So, of course, she was going to be in this movie. But beyond that, I didn't know anyone else. But I will say that Natalie Grace, who played Katie Cannon, the mummy girl in this movie, did a great job considering all the crazy things we see her character go through. A lot of contorting. I don't know if she did all of it, but I assume she at least did some of it. So as far as design goes, most of the weight is obviously carried by makeup. It looks disgusting, but that disgusting is so well done that for me, it wasn't really as off-putting as something gory that was closer to something you would actually have a chance of seeing in real life. I also liked a lot of the cinematography and sets of most of the scenes in Egypt and Katie's home after she's returned to her family. There's definitely some VFX involved, but I don't think that it takes away from the natural presence that the locations have on their own. I appreciated that this movie had a more complex plot and lore than I was expecting from the teaser and full trailer, because I honestly was just assuming we get a fairly bare bones something happened with their kid, but we don't know what story. And they'd have their mummy daughter haunting their family, but we actually get quite a bit of mystery and suspense and some unintentionally funny moments in an otherwise serious horror movie. So the vibe was considerably different than I thought it would be. Going into my ratings, I gave this a 3.5 for enjoyment. And a 3 for quality.
Jeez.
Yeah. While I don't think this movie is bad, I do think it delivered something that was probably a bit unexpected and definitely a unique take on what we've typically experienced from a mostly classic characterization of main character mummies in films. But given that I think most looking forward to seeing this, we're also expecting a very serious and straightforward horror movie, I could understand why reviews have been kind of mixed on this movie. However, I think the way this movie differs from other mummy movies was actually what got me to enjoy it a bit more than I expected. There's a mystery and there's suspense, and it's more than just a story about a mummy haunting or going after living people, or something as simple as a daughter returning as a mummy or anything like that. And as disgusting as some people, including Ashley, found this movie, I feel like there's also some merit in a movie that forces you to look past that very obvious nastiness so you can discover clues on bandages and stuff like that you see in the trailer that will hopefully help you solve the mystery of whatever the fuck is going on. And that nasty stuff is also what led me to give this movie a slightly higher quality rating than the middle. It was really well done, and I think the fact that people were so grossed out by it was kind of a testament to how good it looked, because I don't believe that fake gore grosses people out that much, you know? Also, the acting and VFX weren't bad either, so yeah, 3 for quality. I couldn't really think of any recommendations that were similar to this movie because I probably don't watch enough horror films in general to have enough context, but I will say that a movie that I also liked the VFX gore and horror makeup stuff in was the recent Toxic Avenger movie from 2023 starring Peter Dinklage. That movie is definitely more campy and hilarious and less scary and disgusting. So probably around the same level of quality, but just a completely different vibe. What do you think?
Well, you know, I was dreading seeing this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I really didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And the day that we planned to see it, I would say maybe like 5 times. We would just be out having a nice day. And then I would be like, oh my God, this is all going to end and we're going to have to watch Lee Cronin's goddamn Mummy. trailer alone really grossed me out. Like skin being peeled off, creepy, weird nails, the little mummy girl. Like, no. So, yeah, going in, I knew I don't want to see this. This is not my kind of movie. And it's not. But that said, it did surprise me in some ways.
Mm.
I actually liked the beginning okay. It had kind of more of a spooky rather than repulsive vibe.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too over the top gross. At times, it felt more like a detective story. You've got the parents and Detective Zaki trying to figure out what happened to our little mummy girl, Katie. And yeah, I was more into that than I expected. I think the acting was strong across the board, but Natalie Grace as Katie and Jack Rayner as the father really stood out to me. Grace is fantastic. I mean, she's genuinely creepy. She really nails the physicality and just the creepiness. I'm going to say creepy a lot in this review. Yeah, but in a way that felt like controlled and intentional. And I thought Rayner brought a little heart. He feels like the audience stand-in. He is the one character who's actually somewhat clear-eyed about how messed up the situation is, which made him a little easier to latch on to. But then it gets disgusting. And I am not exaggerating to say I probably had my eyes closed for 20 to 30 minutes of this 134-minute movie. There's just some images I don't need floating around in my brain. I can handle the mystery. I can handle dark humor, but I don't need to see someone's skin getting ripped off. At a certain point, it's just like, why? And here's the thing. I feel like I got a little philosophical thinking about this because I do love a lot of very violent and sometimes gross movies, but not in this way, and I was trying to think, what do people get from this? I guess, and actually, if you're into movies like these, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. My best guess is that for horror fans, it's probably similar to how I feel watching an insane fight scene in an action movie. There's a thrill to it, maybe even a feeling of catharsis. But yeah, I don't get catharsis from seeing oozing flesh. I just get grossed out and stay disturbed. And that constant sense of impending doom that you get in horror, yeah, not for me. I mean, I already feel anxiety in real life. I don't need to add to it. That said, I recognize that technically, I think it's well done. The gore that I saw a little bit of through squinted eyes was pretty effective. The direction, I think, is solid. The fact that I was engaged at all in this movie when I had to be dragged to see it, that says something. Now, what really lost me, though, was it's so insane. The way the initial reactions by the family and the medical communities are so, I don't even want to say not realistic. They're just beyond. It's in another world. They behave so insanely that it took me out of it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no world where a girl who has been locked in a sarcophagus for 8 years just gets sent home without serious mental and physical care.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I felt like. There's something either was cut or they just didn't even think about it when they were writing this.
Yeah. And she was in horrible condition that they sent her back home to. Also, I'd be curious to see that flight home. Like, how did that go?
Yeah.
And then the dynamics between the parents just feel kind of off. But then again, I did kind of wonder, are the things that bother me here, the lack of any kind of medical realism, the simplistic reactions that family members have, are those like horror movie tropes that I'm not aware
here's
of?
The thing. The funny part was I was kind of about to get into that. It'd be one thing if this movie was just straight horror for like the rest of it, but it's not. That's what makes me feel like it's not just as simple as something that we're not aware of thing. I really think it ended up being something that due to some kind of cuts with the final release of the film or just the writing for the characters was missing that aspect of it, because I think it was very clear that it was a specific aspect of the movie that was missing, because the rest of it seemed pretty good. for lack of a better word, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that there's definitely some qualities that this movie had that made me engage with it, because I am not above sleeping through a movie I don't want to see at the theater. Life's too short to watch something that's totally unbearable. And it wasn't that. It just was not my thing.
Yeah.
And so getting into my ratings are going to reflect this. And that is why we have the double ratings here, because I gave it for an enjoyment a 1. I really I don't want to say I wish I hadn't seen it, but I would say I have gained nothing in my life from having seen this because it's so repulsive to me.
Really?
But for quality, I would give it a 2.5, largely on the backs of the
learning about the mummification process in general.
That was somewhat, well, okay.
Seeing a cool sarcophagus, like it was a dope looking sarcophagus. You got to admit that.
Let's just say that bodily fluids are involved in ways that I would not have expected. But for quality, I gave it a 2.5. I think directing solid. I do think there's some things missing, kind of like you were saying, either in the writing or post-production. But I think the performances are really good. And there are a couple moments of humor that I liked. So thank you, Lee Cronin, for your work. I don't know if I'll be seeing your next movie, but I respect it. So, yeah, The Mummy, Lee Cronin's. Hey, Sushi, what do we have going on with Monarch?
Well, we're on season 2, episode 8, Separate Ways is the title of the episode. This episode completely took place within the modern timeline, so luckily not a lot of skipping around today, aside from the few locations we cut between. We begin the episode with Lee tearing across the sand dunes in northern Australia in a pickup truck, eventually overlooking Titan X, where it's arrived near the shore. The Titan lies relatively still as the scarabs scurry around it and build what seems to look like a nest. On Outpost 18, Director Barris takes a video call from the Secretary of Defense. The U.S. is receiving pressure from the Australian government to escalate action against Titan X per their mutual defense pact. Though Barris pushes back, the Secretary has already sent assets to nuke the Titan in hopes of finally putting a stop to everything.
Man.
Yeah. Keiko and Kate arrive by chopper at Outpost 18, meet with Tim, and head in to meet with Barris, where they update him on Lee's plan to send Godzilla after Titan X. We cut back to Lee as he's driving closer towards Titan X and parks to unload the Titan phone from the truck bed. Meanwhile, on Outpost 18, Barris lets Keiko and Kate know that the team is monitoring Titan X, so they'll be able to detect any sign of Godzilla if and when he shows up. Unfortunately, he also breaks the bad news to them that the team is arriving to nuke Titan X in about 3 hours.
Crazy.
While he's initially surprised and argues against Keiko and Kate's plan to get Titan X back on course, he eventually agrees to allow them to make an attempt in the interim. Kentaro arrives also via chopper at Outpost 18, and he's greeted by Korra, who informs him that Kate and Keiko are already there and asks how Thailand was. Reluctantly, he tells her about his meeting with Isabel, then walks off, asking her to leave it as she reacts stunned. As Tim walks with Keiko and Kate and goes through their transport plan, they encounter Korra and Kentaro in the hallway. The first time since their father's funeral that the two half-siblings have been in the same place at the same time. Apparently, he'll be joining them on their trip to face Titan X, though we're unsure what his actual motivation is at this point, given that we see him receive a call from Isabel Simmons soon after stopping by his cabin on Outpost 18. But when he runs into Kate later, he at least mentions a desire to get it away from the people, as he puts it.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah. Back in Northern Australia, we see Lee's finished assembling the Titan phone. He turns it on, then heads away from the area. as on Outpost 18, the Randas load onto a chopper and head in his direction. Cora meets with Tim, requesting a meeting with Brenda, informing him of the secret meeting Kentaro has had with Isabel Simmons and her belief that Apex is up to something. Tim encourages her to investigate the situation, agreeing to arrange a meeting with Brenda for her. Lee gets out of his truck as he spots Titan X flailing its tentacles. A swarm of birds gathers above, and he's shocked to see the Randa's chopper appear, only to crash soon after encountering the swarm.
Oh, man.
Yep. Back on Outpost 18, Tim gets wind of this and scrambles to control the check on them. Luckily, the pilot responds to their radio call, but they're requesting immediate evacuation. We then cut to somewhere in South Pacific, as it literally reads on the screen, where we see Godzilla awakening. We see Lee heading towards the crash on foot, where he spots Keiko walking away from the area as he calls out and runs over to her. We soon see the rest of the Randas approach from behind, so it looks like everyone made it out alive. Cora arrives at Monarch Asset Management, which, per the caption, is in an undisclosed location.
Perfect place for it.
Yeah. Where she meets with Brenda in what looks like an interrogation room. Brenda seems eager to help and take accountability, but obviously Cora doesn't believe that's all Apex is up to, as she asks her out of nowhere, point blank, what Isabel wants with Kentaro. Back near Titan X, Keiko and Lee argue over getting Titan X back on route, or as Lee calls it, saving it. And destroying it, as she informs him of the U.S. government's plan to nuke it. But all Lee can seem to see is the human lives lost because of the Titans. As Lee walks off, Kentaro seems strangely encouraging about having Cade attempt to get Titan X back on course and offers to keep an eye on her as Keiko keeps an eye on Lee. We return to Monarch Asset Management, where Cora is continuing to pressure Brenda for info on Isabel's plans, but she refuses to break and ends up walking out on Cora. Tension rises as Kate gets up close to Titan X and Kentaro watches over her. Meanwhile, Keiko tries again to plead with Lee to get him to try to get Titan X back on course. And while it may seem like they both share the ultimate goal of protecting humans, Lee can't agree with any plan that involves putting Keiko or her grandchildren at risk. After taking a closer look, Titan X reveals that the scarabs, in fact, did make a nest, and it's holding an egg.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Kate seems overjoyed at this discovery, but Kentaro just looks uneasy as we see him sneak away and make a call to Isabel. While he's not sure what she has planned is what his father wanted. Isabel's aggressive in her approach to keep him focused as he informs her of the egg. T rejoins Kate and hears how excited she is. Titan X is a mother, and she's finally figured out the mystery behind her actions this whole time. They unfortunately hear and then spot Godzilla heading towards them as alarms go off at Outpost 18 when they also detect this. We see a military convoy approaching Titan X's location and soon find that it's actually Trisop and his team from Apex.
Jeez.
Titan X detects danger, though we're initially unsure whether that's Godzilla or the Apex team. But we soon see her off in the distance, heading to meet face-to-face with Godzilla, as we see Kate and Kentaro run away from the area and Trisop and his team head towards it to acquire the Titan egg. Things have certainly reached the tipping point as we close out the episode with Keiko and Lee arriving by the shore to see Titan X fighting with Godzilla. Things between Kate and Kentaro getting worse as she realizes his likely involvement in Apex's egg napping. Trisop directing the transport of the Titan egg via helicopter as Godzilla charges up and shoots his trademark blue laser from his mouth, leaving an opportunity for Titan X to break free and chase after her egg as Godzilla pursues, and we cut to black.
Man.
So, Ashley, what did you think?
I never thought I would be so firmly on Titan X's side.
Yeah.
I just think the monster stuff in this episode is so good. Both how it looks, like the scale looks incredible. especially on that huge empty beach. It's just sand and monsters and teeny tiny humans. I think that's really smart so that you can feel how massive everything is because there's, no one in the foreground. I also really loved in that scene when Shaw and Keiko are walking towards each other over these massive dunes, I guess. It just looked so beautiful. And the Titan X, the whole nest and egg situation, the way she's protecting it. One of the things I thought was cool is normally when you're shooting, say, animals, it's harder for us to understand what the animal is feeling because they don't express emotions in the same way that humans do. You know, they have different facial makeup. And it's the same thing with these monsters. But what they can do is they can show it through their physicality, which there's a lot of that here with her Titan X being sort of vulnerable because she's protecting her egg. I also noticed there's a lot of close-ups on Titan X's eyes. And I think that that's a really obvious way that they're trying to get us to relate to it. And I think it works. It does.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the humans show up and just immediately make everything worse. It's just classic. Shaw's plan is insane. It's just like, let's bring Godzilla to Australia and hope for the best. You know, like, what the fuck? And poor Australia, by the way, they didn't deserve that. And then the government wanting to use nukes. I'm like, guys, have you not seen a single Godzilla movie? Like, you got to know. I mean, obviously, there aren't in the context of the show, but they must know that Godzilla is affected by nukes. And so why wouldn't they
because they actually mention it. They're just like, do you guys not remember Bikini Atoll? It didn't work out that well. But it was funny because the Secretary of Defense was just like, the technology is better now, so don't worry about it.
That's right. I forgot.
I'm just like, okay,
there's
just
always idiots
away, man,
in bureaucracy. So I guess that checks out. And, what I like too is this episode. I think this show is very much, as we've discussed, about generational trauma. And I think this one is very clearly about guilt and responsibility. Everyone feels like they've messed something up and now they're trying to fix it in their own way, even if their way is completely stupid. I think Shaw's a great example of that. He's gone off the rails, but you can tell he's coming from a place of loss and guilt. And then with Keiko, there's this really strong sense that she realizes Shaw was basically planning to sacrifice himself. And now she's there. They're kind of forced to protect each other instead of fighting against each other. So I think that's good. That keeps the sort of chasm from growing deeper, at least for now. And I think that dynamic, I think that's interesting. And then our boy Kentaro. Oh my God. He might be the most frustrating, but also, I don't want to say interesting. I'm interested in what his character's doing. He's so clearly conflicted. He just he bottles everything up and it just comes out in these weird, shady decisions. It's like, go to therapy, please. You can avoid this. But like secretly helping Isabel Simmons while also knowing it's probably wrong. You can see the guilt hitting him in real time, especially once things go sideways. He feels responsible like everyone does, but instead of dealing with it, he kind of spirals and makes it worse. And it's messy, but again, kind of feels real in a way. I mean, obviously to an exaggerated degree because of the circumstances of the plot, but it does feel like how people who bottle things up can end up in precarious situations. And then Kate, on the other hand, is kind of the emotional anchor now, which is kind of cool because she was just like a guilt machine for most of this season. But here she's really trying to do the right thing. She's being vulnerable. She's actually thinking about the Titan as a living creature instead of just a threat. And the fact that she and Kentaro are tentatively trying to open up to each other, at least. She sort of says to him, I understand why you're upset with me. And then they they're protecting each other against danger, even though they're furious, which I think is a good touch.
Yeah.
Also, Tim's a good dude, man.
Yeah.
He just quietly is the best. I loved this. I think it was a quote.
He's the number one fan of the Randas, so
He
he's just doing whatever he can to endear himself to them.
Yeah, and he does something that I think is a real gift, which he tells Kentaro something that Hiroshi had told him, which is that mistakes in the monster business are huge, but that doesn't mean you stop. You still have to keep learning and keep going. And that honestly feels almost like a thesis of the show. It's not just about monsters. It's about people dealing with the consequences of their choices and how that affects the people they love. And then, man, visually, again, the fight stuff is awesome with Titan X and Godzilla. I mean, and I loved that it was a little more emotional. Seeing Titan X realize her egg is being taken and reacting and going after it, it's kind of brutal. It's really sad. And then meanwhile, we've got Godzilla basically being dragged in once again to clean up everyone's mess. I swear this happens every time. He's like the world's most overqualified janitor or something. Everyone's like, come on, fix our problems. So yeah, I think it was a strong episode. Big spectacle, but also good character stuff. Feels like the show knows what's going on now. Of course, we only have one more episode, so I hope that.
Well, no, we got two.
Oh, we do? Okay, awesome. All right, great. But yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes because it was a lot. Yeah, what do you think, Sush?
Well, this episode really started to feel like we're actually closing out the season with pretty much everyone, human and Titan alike, dealing with some kind of bullshit.
Yes.
So, Titan X finally got away and it seems like just wants to chill. The reveal that it was a mother and had an egg was crazy, but I kind of saw this as a possibility. Like back when it was revealed that there was some sort of connection between the scarabs and the Titan.
Yeah.
The whole thing Korra has with Kentaro, I think is just awkward.
Yeah.
Like I know they dated and everything, and I can understand her caring about him as a friend. But given that she's arguably been more than just friendly and didn't seem to mind when he kissed her a few episodes ago, I guess I could see this as a thing that she's not aware of herself.
Oh, yeah, like feelings that she's denying kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
And speaking of Kentaro, I still don't know what his deal is. Like, how the hell does someone like Isabel, who literally he just met, manage to get him to go along with her plan, even when he realizes how not in line it was with what his dad thought of the Titans? Yeah, this dude is just stupid, and I'm really hoping that he starts to feel bad about everything he's had a hand in that's gone completely to shit, given how much he seems to blame Kate for everything she's done.
Oh my God, I know.
Well, I sort of believe that Brenda may not be aware of what Isabel exactly had planned and what she wanted with Kentaro. I don't for a minute believe that she's willing to help Korra and Monarch just because she feels guilty for what she's done. I'm hoping they'll do more with her character because I kind of feel like she's been a bit stagnant since we realized she was basically just going to be the next scapegoat for Apex. I think Kate's connection to Titan X is amazing. But goddamn, girl, even if the Titans aren't trying to attack or kill you intentionally, those things are huge. And I don't think you should be hanging out that close to them, especially when your dad just got killed.
Yeah, I mean, I think she doesn't have control of it in a way.
Yeah, it does seem like that a little bit. I not only love the fight scenes we got between Titan X and Godzilla, but I also love the close-up shots that we got with Titan X.
Oh, yeah.
Again, those Mac Pros are doing some amazing work.
Hell yeah.
I always appreciate seeing a monster fight this good looking on a weekly TV show. Also, I'm not sure if I missed this, but did the U.S. military actually show up, or are we supposed to assume that Trissop's team was a team, or what? Like,
I'm assuming they're not there yet. Also, come on,
yeah, maybe they'll see
Curtis
him at the
always
beginning.
stealing stuff. The hell?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I understood pretty much everything else going on in the episode, but that one detail I wasn't exactly clear on. Overall, I thought this was a solid episode as far as alliances being tested and broken among the protagonists and kind of setting up the close of the season. I'm honestly expecting the worst, given how everything has been going the last few episodes. But with that said, I also feel like this is the type of show to kind of make up for things at the start of a season.
Yeah, true.
So I'm not too upset since that means we'll likely get another season, especially given that I also found out that Apple TV actually has a multi-series deal with Legendary Entertainment to expand the Monsterverse.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that could also include potential spin-offs. So I think we're safe for a while. One realization I had that I want to mention, though, is that the antagonists have been kind of quiet, or at least kind of in hiding since the mishap at Santa Soledad. So it makes sense that story-wise, conflict between the protagonists is kind of taken over since they haven't been busy with dealing with Apex. But really, I'm almost thinking that this is just a way for the showrunners to kind of allow Apex to plot under the radar before they return, which ideally for them would happen before the protagonists worked everything out and got back together again. So
yeah, I could see that.
Just looking forward to the end of the season because this is definitely a show that loves ending on cliffhangers or like bad situations.
I hope we get to see some King Kong again. I love King Kong.
We saw him this season.
We did.
Season.
That'd be nice. You know, would like to see some more monsters.
Cool. Moving on to Daredevil, Born Again. We are on season 2, episode 6, titled Requiem, which, funny enough, Monarch also had a season 2, episode 6, titled Requiem.
What? They were both episode 6s?
Yes, they were both episode 6, season 2. And they were both titled Requiem. I am not joking.
Is there something about the word Requiem and 6s that I don't know about? That's crazy.
I don't know. Either that or the people knew we were going to cover these shows and they're like, let's just the same thing.
I think that's it.
I'm not to type anything. Just copy paste that over from the other one.
Wild.
Maybe some typing. But anyway, let's recap the show. We open with Fisk grieving Vanessa's death. Dr. Murati tries to comfort him and offers a hug. Fisk accepts, but then kills him during the embrace by crushing him.
That was so awesome. You knew it was coming, but I still loved it.
Yeah. Later, Buck disposes of the body, of course. At Vanessa's funeral, everyone is dressed in black except for Fisk, who wears white and sits alone in the front row. Members of the AVTF stand in the background and no family members are present. Charles is back with a crew to collect his weapons shipment, but unfortunately for him, it's already gone. It's revealed that Fisk actually repurposed the weapons and distributed them to the AVTF. Charles calls Fisk to confront him, but Fisk ends up hanging up on him. Karen and Matt discuss whether they should kill Fisk and Bullseye. Karen argues it may be necessary, comparing it to her killing Wesley. However, Matt says that situation was self-defense, while killing Fisk or Bullseye now would be a choice, not survival, and refuses to. At Vanessa's wake, the governor tells Sheila that Fisk is unstable without Vanessa and suggests that she run for office, while hinting at a possibility of fast-tracking her way into the office without a traditional campaign. At the same time, Buck speaks with the lieutenant governor about taking power more directly.
Oh, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
There actually is a connection between Requiem and 6.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so a Requiem, which refers to a mass for the dead, normally has 6 main movements or sections in a classical structure. So it could be that they named these episodes Requiem on 6, both because they deal with death and because it's like going through the process of grief.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you can include that or not, but I had to share.
Okay, cool. Also at the wake, BB Urich talks with Daniel and suggests they spend time together. Buck later tells Daniel he suspects BB is leaking information and instructs him to feed her false information as a test.
Oy.
He also references Daniel's role in disposing the body in the last episode. Meanwhile, Jessica Jones is at home with her daughter when armed men break in. She fights them off and determines that they're connected to a larger operation, and she leaves to find Matt. At City Hall, people leave tributes to Vanessa while protesters gather with signs criticizing her and Fisk, and tensions begin to rise. Jessica finds Matt while he is surveilling a warehouse containing AVTF weapons. She tells him the attack on her came from a U.S. government-linked group led by Charles that targets and recruits people with powers. She says that she was approached and refused, but others did not. Matt notices she's injured, and she explains her powers have been inconsistent since having her daughter.
Oh.
That night, the protests really kick into high gear with testimonies from detainees, including Soledad, being projected onto buildings all over the city. It doesn't take long for Matt to show up, and he quickly spots Fisk in the middle of it all. Matt tells Fisk that whatever they're caught up in together is toxic, and if they don't stop it now, it's only going to end badly for both of them. Of course, the two end up throwing hands, with Vanessa's artwork getting destroyed in the process.
Yeah.
After some back and forth, Matt manages to come out on top, just as the task force ramps things up and starts pushing the crowd back even harder. In all the chaos, Javi from the food truck who passed the info to BB before gets badly hurt. Karen rushes in to help, only to suddenly find herself face to face with Powell as the episode ends.
Damn.
Ashley, what'd you think about it?
I mean, this episode worked for me. It really did. It feels like everything's finally colliding together in a way that's kind of messy and emotional. I think the biggest win early on, I am so happy to see Jessica Jones finally. Like, I'm so happy she's here. She brings this completely different energy to the show. And I just love that character. I think the first comic series I read in its entirety was the Jessica Jones Alias series. I just love it. And I think she brings something cool here too in the fighting style. I loved when she and Daredevil broke into that warehouse and you see the difference. He's very like skilled and aware of his surroundings. She is just really casual because she's just so strong.
Just brawling.
Yeah, she doesn't need to overcomplicate anything. She's just kicking and punching and getting it done. And the detail about her powers dipping since having her daughter, I thought was interesting. I thought that was cool. Gives something new to play with beyond just being a badass. Opens up some vulnerability without taking away what makes her cool. Yeah. Side note, I don't know if Luke Cage is going to be back, but oh my God, I really hope he is. But I'm not going to get my hopes up because we had to wait so long to see Jessica. And then, the Karen stuff this episode was pretty stressful and compelling. She just is fully spiraling into the mindset that killing Wilson Fisk and Bullseye is justified. And you can see it really freaks Matt out. He loves her and is trying to talk to her about it from where she's at, but he seems kind of horrified, and I would be too. But Karen just doesn't get it. She thinks in a way that, and she even says, like, you're choosing the wrong people. She tells Matt, you're choosing Fisk and Bullseye over the people that love you, which is a pretty brutal misread of what's going on. She's clearly really acting from a place of fear and grief about Foggy that's still very where she is. And then going back to her background in the original Daredevil series, she's been through a lot. So
true.
It does make sense that she would have some responses to trauma, I'm going to say. But yeah, I thought the tension between the two of them's good, and you can see that they still love each other, but it might come to a breaking point. And on the Fisk side, I love Vincent D'Onofrio as an actor. I think he's so good. And I love that they're showing that even in grief, there's a version of him that almost understands Matt's offer to walk away when they're talking. I think that's cool. But the second that Daredevil just mentions Vanessa's name, he loses it. Like, he can't see any reason, can't separate his emotions from decisions. And that's what makes him so dangerous as a character. That and the fact that he's just a tank of a man. And I thought the imagery of the white painting getting destroyed in their first fight, it's a good visual payoff. That painting's been through a lot. And to see it destroyed right after Vanessa dies, I think it's a really good representation of how he's broken with her loss. I just like everything about the scene between the two of them. It's just meaty, good stuff. They're going back and forth verbally. And then when they get into the fight, it's really interesting. It's funny. I think when we were watching, I said this, but it's a little weird to see someone as big as Fisk move so quickly. You forget how aggressive he is sometimes because he doesn't have to be. But we see two big moments of violence from him in this with the fight with Daredevil. And oh my God, I loved the part at the beginning where he killed the doctor. Because
it's like, oh man, this is like a bad move because the doctor was too confident.
Yes. Well, and I just knew something was going to happen because the doctor's all he's very like woo woo in his language about death. And then he literally goes to hug this man. Like, don't hug Fisk, dummy,
Nah, man.
I'm not saying he was asking for it, but I'm saying it was very predictable outcome given what we know of Kingpin.
Exactly.
There's a lot of smaller stuff that worked here as well. The Daniel and BB storyline's getting more interesting, especially with her going to kiss him and not posting about the info he gave her. You can tell we've sort of been trying to figure out how she feels about Daniel as we've been talking about the season. And I think she really does have romantic feelings for him. I don't know why, but no.
I don't feel like she necessarily has romantic ones for him, but I am starting to feel like she has genuine feelings for him.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, I noticed some of the posters he had in his childhood room, Daniel's. And I think one of my favorites was he had a sign that said, "Life is short, buy the sneakers." That is something like.
Oh, right. I think he is a sneakerhead.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. Things about it.
And then we get some strangulation stuff going on with Heather and, oh shit, my brain just stopped. Yes, between Buck and Heather, we get that moment where, first of all, she steals one of Vanessa's rings when she goes into her room during the wake. I don't know what that was or where that's going to come back. We see her freaking out with that weird sound going on and the camera sort of going askew. So we know she's definitely a little unhinged. She gets upset. And then he's like, "Tell me what Muse did to you." She gets upset and she talks about how he strangled her. She's like, "Well, show me how he did it." Oh my God. And I think the actors did a great job.
Yeah.
She is so upset and is sobbing, and he's enjoying it a little too much. But I'm interested to see where that's going to go. There's just so many things colliding in this episode. And seeing the way the protesters and the AVTF, it just feels like a really good setup for the last episode or two of this season. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens. Really hoping for more Jessica. Yeah, good episode. What'd you think?
Well, coincidentally, this episode I felt kind of operated similarly to the episode of Monarch that we also covered. And that like the alliances are being tested and everything's kind of being laid out for the conclusion of the season. But while I think that Monarch has a tendency to end on a cliffhanger or a down note, I feel like Daredevil typically likes to shoot for a happy ending each season.
True.
Which I definitely feel like we're heading for.
Mm.
I appreciate that we had the return of Charles.
Oh,
And
yeah.
while we can see he's not very happy with how things have panned out with Fisk, it also doesn't seem like Valentina's worried, because I assume she's the type of person who would have sent a superpowered team to deal with it already if she really felt the need to do so. Even though I've been kind of against Phoebe having any feelings for Daniel, I do think that her having those genuine feelings for him being the reason why she kind of ends up deciding against passing along the false info that Daniel passed to her was at least a good reason, if any, to have her do that. I still believe that Daniel is the one that's going to end up paying for all these
Oh, my
leaks.
God, yeah.
And it definitely seems like that's probably going to be the way it plays out, now that the suggestion that Buck gave to him to try won't be panning out.
Yeah.
But I imagine more than ever, with Vanessa dead, Fisk is going to want something done about the leak with his administration. And I'm expecting that it won't be patched up. So he's probably going to be the one to hear about it.
Dang.
I like that there was some setup with Sylvia potentially taking over as mayor after Fisk. While I'd be kind of surprised if it ends up that Valentina set a plan in motion that involved having the governor exercising her power to replace Fisk with someone else, I wouldn't put it past her, since she's been able to keep the government mostly clueless about what she's been up to.
True.
I mean, if they even care to know. Also, the fact that we have Daredevil and Fisk having a fight
Hell yeah.
that we'd typically expect during a season finale. It almost feels like they have other business that they have to deal with before closing out the season.
Ooh. That's a good point.
Yeah. I enjoyed the short Daredevil and Jessica Jones team up fight that we got in the episode.
Hell yeah.
So I just hope we get more of that in the last two episodes, and hopefully a return of the Punisher before the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
But overall, not my favorite episode, but I think we've definitely reached the point in the season where the good guys are starting to push back and the villains are starting to lose their hold over everything.
True.
So I'm really looking forward to what's to come, especially because I feel like Marvel Studios is really trying to better interconnect the MCU TV shows with the movies. And I think this is the TV test before the bigger movie test, which I'd consider the upcoming Spider-Man movie, before we head into Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, and eventually what most fans expect will probably result in some sort of reset or reorienting of the MCU. So while I haven't felt like this adaptation this season has felt as impactful as the Mayor Fisk storyline from the comics, I feel like the showrunners have done a great job with really developing the characters this season, and the actors have done a phenomenal job playing them and really giving them depth, especially over the past two seasons. So, yeah, good episode. Like I said, not my favorite, but definitely worked for me as well, setting everything up for the remainder of the season.
That's right. All right. Daredevil.
Oh. Ashley, what are we watching next?
Well, Sushi, we will be watching Michael and Mother Mary. And there's a couple of other movies that are premiering this coming weekend that we might also see. We'll be in touch. We'll let you know next week. And what are we watching for TV, Sush?
Well, we're going to be watching season 2, episode 9 of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. That's the penultimate episode.
I love that
word. Yeah. And then season 2, episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again, which may also be the penultimate episode of that series as well. So
a double penalty?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I believe that may be the case. So,
wow.
We are getting to the end of these, which means I need to start looking at what's coming up next. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. We are so happy you spent some time here with us this week. And we appreciate you for hanging out with us two weirdos.
Yep. And please subscribe, rate, and review.
That would be so nice.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
64
It's like the
reviews.
complete opposite of how Ashley felt about the goo and all that type of stuff coming from Lee Cronin's The Mummy. So rate and review us the opposite of what Ashley would feel about that type of stuff. And then,
okay.
also follow us on the social medias, TikTok,
Yes.
Instagram, Facebook. And yeah, thank you. We appreciate you guys.
You guys are the best. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you this time next week.
All right,
Or whenever you listen to it.
Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Laughter
Nate.
in the air, friendships touch. Movies and delights, we'll share so much. Let's enjoy this